Hello YouTube, it is time to give my poll plans for the month of July in the city of Final Fantasy Opera Omni Global version. I will be doing an overview with my perspective, having played this period in the Japanese version, highlighting some gotchas and outlining my poll plans so you guys can get insight into what I'm thinking and maybe form your own opinions afterwards. Before I continue though, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, which you should be, missing out on a lot of great stuff. Share this video around wherever you can, drop a comment about your poll plans. I'm curious to hear what you're planning. I play both JP and GL and I upload content for both. I also stream at least once a week on my stream. I call it the ranting hour, where it's more in between topics that I have on my mind because I'm too lazy to make videos usually, and it's a lot more unfiltered than I tend to be on some of my edited videos, and I know some people enjoy that, so come through. It's pretty fun. We almost peaked at 200 viewers last time. I'm trying to get more to come through. It's oh man, do we have fun. But anyways, I'll also be reading all the comments, so don't be afraid to ask anything if I wasn't clear. I also do monthly JP retrospectives that I am catching up on currently. I stream those on the weekends sometimes. I do it close to around when content finishes to get my takes. I'm going to link that as well so you can see how I felt about this content after it was fresh and how my opinions have possibly evolved since then. As always, everything here is my opinion and my impression. Do not take it as fact, please. I screw up all the time. Double check your sources. Read info for yourself. I am fallible, always seek out different points of view and aim to understand them and where they're all coming from and whether or not they are credible. Opening thoughts for this month. Well, the big thing this month I'd say is that we're getting the 8 debuff quality of life. That's pretty exciting. Ferris call, Amidatelli call, Kaya's call. You guys are a lot more flexible. Hell, you're a lot more flexible just in the party in general. So shout out to them. You can fit more debuffs against the enemies. We do not get debuff more. We still have 6 debuff slots on us, but the enemy can now buff themselves to 8, which is also a slight buff. It makes Transcendence 2 a little bit harder if you're trying to go the way of blocking their debuffs out. Just be aware of that. Additionally, the fabled 6-man flop event in JP was supposed to be this month on the second half with Layle's burst, but I have no idea how they're going to handle that. I'm actually recording this before the stream, so whatever happens, hopefully it's a lot better than it was when it happened in JP. That event was so bad in JP that it hasn't even come back to this date. Maybe if I say this, it'll come back on the report next week, but whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. But do check out my video on that. I recorded with some of my buddies at the time, and it was just so stupid, but we were acting like such idiots in the co-op, and I know a lot of people enjoyed that. Anyways, this is a skip month for a lot of people. Not a lot of hype around pretty much anything this month outside of Porom, and understandably so, but at the same time, there are some gems this month, and I hope I can illuminate some things that are going around, counter some overhype, and provide some context to some other interesting units. As for content wise, I know some people gotten burned out recently because not a lot of this current content, the months of, what should I say, May and June weren't very broadcasted. They weren't as people weren't as paranoid about those as the Sephiroth month, and it caught a lot of people off guard. And you know, world's opening back up, we're seeing if we can do other things in the game, but on the bright side, the content, they do ease up on the gas a little going forward now. If you check out my video on the lockout myth, I highlighted that this period in going forward in content, lockouts are pretty much almost done. There's Imperial immunity and a magic counter on Eald Narsh's fight, and after that, it's pretty much smooth sailing. So if you've been feeling the content was a little bit too restrictive, then this month should be a bit more entertaining for you, I hope. Don't be afraid to mix it up. And yeah, that's about it. So let's jump right into the content and my plans. Act 3, Chapter 3, Part 1 kicks off. Eald Narsh gets a burst weapon. So interestingly enough, they actually fast forward his rework, which was just his LD board rework. They fast forwarded it in global because his LD on release was so pathetic. So he actually didn't get anything here besides a burst and high armor. I think I've expressed how much I dislike using Eald Narsh in this game. Even no matter how cool he is, and his burst animation is really cool, but I gotta give him his respect. He is plenty powerful, and in the right situations, he's very useful. His burst effect is kind of similar to Ramza, but it's debuff based. So at its core, Eald Narsh's burst effect gives party overflow and brave regen based on Embrave, and this is 30% brave regen, so that's actually pretty good. And the condition is party brave damage and brave damage cap goes up 5% per debuff on target, which is also actually pretty strong. So you can stack a bunch of debuffs with Eald Narsh. Let him, and he's pretty slow in practice too, so any damage dealer can take actually pretty big advantage of that, especially people with who tend to cap their own brave. And what I think is the most interesting part of his burst effect is that debuffs that Eld Narsh inflicts, so terror, warp, etc., all this stuff, it doesn't decrease at the end of the enemy's turn. So he has a pretty much unlimited warp and terror, which can be potentially abusable. I don't quite know the big brain ramifications of this, but in the right hands and the right setup, this is hilariously powerful. He got the Brave Cap, high armor, and he's got the debuff at base, and that makes a little sense because he's got a lot of Brave hits on his skills, and he's usually only doing 1 HP attack, so it doesn't make sense to pump that up a lot. And that's all he got. I mean, he's still definitely powerful in his own right. The only problem with using Eald Narsh is that you're using Eald Narsh, so not much to say about that. You can still lock bosses down provided they aren't terror immune, which is non-existent going forward. So anyone who says, "Oh, watch out for terror immunity," that's pretty much, that's like saying watch out for debuff immunity, which not something to be worried about. Alongside Eald Narsh, Noel from 13.2 is coming back. He's getting a rework and an LD. This is one of my favorite characters, but I also have no problem staying impartial here. I used him a ton. I didn't record all my runs, but I'll do my best to explain what I think about him. His rework is actually pretty simple. So skill 1, Tempest Strike. He has AoE Brave hits now and has 50% splash, so this is actually a pretty good damage skill. If you're attacking a broken target, it will only re-break the one you targeted. It won't re-break AoE. That's something really important to note. Skill 2 can now instant break, so no condition, as if the enemy has Brave, they get broken immediately, and if they don't have Brave, then it re-breaks. So both of his skills re-break now consistently, which is really cool. And if you need an instant break on the fly, you got it right there. And skill 2 is now 2 HP attacks as well, with multiple Brave attacks in between. No refund though. He got 1 more use of his skill 1 and 3 more uses of his skill 2, so he's gonna have an easier time skill spamming, much easier. He never runs out. His HP plus also got buff, but you're never gonna touch that, but it got 5 hits, I guess, like, whatever. Now here's where the fun starts. His LD is an instant break if the targets have Brave, and a re-break if they are already broken. AoE, 100% AoE attack, very flashy. Noel also gets a free skill after this. It's debatable what you use. Some people say C65, sometimes you just want to use a skill, but it's situational. Whatever, he's not going to win out of skills, so C65 is probably safe. New buff he gets from LD, and it's a buff, not an overhead. He gets self-attack up and Brave damage up. And when he's attacking a broken enemy, he gets 30% HP damage up, which is pretty significant. Noel should always be attacking broken targets, so this pretty much is in play all the time. He also got 30% attack up for the party on his limit break, so now he's got a decent 65% attack aura, which is not horrible. He contributes slightly to the party now. He got a really weird gimmick in the form of party break bonus is up by 100%, so it's doubled functionally. I have never found a good use of that, but maybe some break bonus memes, people would enjoy that, I don't know. Stacking with Muhammad, I suppose. Anyway, after using his LD, he gets a free ability uses. You can do this on your C65 to get a more uptime on that and get an attack up, I guess, or you could just burn it on the skill, I suppose. But the important thing now is that he gets a follow-up after breaking targets. This is not when he's attacking a broken target. He has to break them on his turn. Skill 1, Skill 2, and LD will be your bread and butter for this because they all re-break, but it's also a slight buff to his C65 and Brave Plus, because if you break him with Brave Plus, normally it'd take up a turn, it'd be turn inefficient, but now it actually dumps HP because you broke the target. EX just can't trigger it unless you break a target with it, and you don't want to be breaking a target with your EX in the first place. You want to be attacking someone broken so you can get the full 50% splash. So EX, worst part of the kit. What else is new? We know this gets fixed down the line with his EX extension too. Base call is skill 1, single target re-break, AoE Brave hits. Situationally good. It's got a decent attack, Brave, and defense up for the caller, I suppose, but I don't know why you'd bring this over anything else generally. LD call's cool though. It's an instant break AoE or a re-break AoE if you really need that, and the caller gets attack and Brave damage up, which is definitely solid. He's got the attacker high armor, obviously, and his split leans towards Brave damage. So he does a lot of Brave hits and has a lot of HP attacks in between. So this benefits him a lot because if you buff him up enough, he will be hitting those higher caps and doing more HP damage with his multiple HP damage attacks as a result. Irvine, Kate Sith, Sid, and Lise are all on the banners as well. They're all getting level 80, but who cares about them right now, I guess. What do I think? Well, Eald Narsh is powerful in his own right. He just sucks to play as I think a lot of people have come around to that take and agree with me. But plenty powerful. Don't sell his burst if you get it and you don't want it, because we don't know how powerful he may be in the future. Selling burst is a dumb idea, kind of petty, so just don't be that guy. But I mean, I personally wouldn't gun for Eald Narsh's burst, but I can see the value in it personally. And there's a ranged there's a range orb Transcendence in the future. If you have Eald Narsh's burst, he'd be great fodder to just throw on that one thing. Yeah, it was Transcendence 4, right? Crucible, it's Crucible 2. Yeah, nothing else to say about him really. He didn't really get much aside from the burst, but the burst can be situationally powerful. Noel, he is my favorite character, but honestly, he's average at best. At this release, he's a solid damage dealer. He's got high attack, he's got utility with the rebreaks, but he's not standing out. And if you're like strapped for resources, and he's not going to be carrying you through any content. I mean, I'm going to be using him a ton, as I did in JP, and I'm actually going to record my Noel runs this time just because I ran secondary runs with Noel offline when I should have just recorded those two, but I was being lazy. And so now I get to show him off again. But really, Noel's just kind of just, all right. Am I pulling? Well, the Eald banner, I already have his LD, so I don't need to pull here. Not interested in his burst, I wouldn't chase that. But I am going to gem Noel because he is a favorite. I'm not going to wait like 6 or 7 months, however long the gap is, to use him with burst and EX extension too. That's just kind of goofy. If you're not super interested in Noel, I honestly would say there's really no reason to pull on this banner now. His banner down the road with his burst and Sid's LD is a hilariously better banner, and that banner just kind of knocked this one out of any prospect aside from like hardcore Noel fans like me. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I wouldn't personally recommend anyone to go for him here unless they're a big fan. As for Eald doesn't have any known reruns for his LD in the future, so maybe we don't know how his burst plus is going to look. So that's something to be aware of. And at this point, he's going to be coming with the EX extension, so there's a lot up in the air about him. But he's usually he's not much people's play style, but I do give him some respect. He is powerful when executed well. So yeah, gem pitty Noel on my front. I wouldn't be mad at Eald burst because I know exactly where he's going in Transcendence for the Crucible 2. But if I don't get the burst, then whatever, I don't care. Wouldn't be using him much anyways, maybe unless we get a third Dullahan Abyss. Fingers crossed we don't though. As most of us know, I should assume, Noel reruns in the future alongside Sid's LD, the beginning of level 90, and where you get the EX extension and a burst. That is an infinitely better banner, so if you're on the fence, just skip Noel for real. He's not super impressive, and Eald, we do not know when he's going to rerun at this point, although when he does, he will definitely be confirmed to be getting EX extension, burst plus, level 90, all the works. So you probably won't feel terrible if you skip out on him, but just again, acknowledge his power and understand why you may or may not be interested. Honestly, I semi kind of feel bad for Eald because I definitely contributed to to people kind of hating him. But the Dullahan made me reconsider. Actually, I take that all back because I remember just pressing the HP attack over and over again how much I hate it. Yeah, never mind. Eald sucks. Expect a lot of Noel runs though. The Lufenia is semi interesting. There's an Eald mannequin that can blow you up with an all attack. That's no good. And there's a Chaos Bahamut from Final Fantasy 13-2. It is immune to elemental resist down, so you can imperil it, and it's also magic resist. There is a magic counter, but it's in the second part of that fight, so I'll go over that in a second. The orb is to break the target, so that's selling Noel pretty hard whenever you just do a break on it, so Noel can just re-break and eat off that. Lightning RNA can do the same thing. I guess Vayne, maybe, if you wanted to really big brain it. Somebody's gonna do a Vayne run, I'm certain of it. Anyway, the first phase of this boss isn't terribly threatening. It does have a mode where it'll turn red. There's a fat brave gain, and then you gotta break it. Defense spikes on that one turn while it's red, so you can either skip the turn with like the stun, like Eald, or you could just pop it instantly with Noel. That's how they're selling it. Either way, you gotta get around that, or else the entire party's gonna get blown up by a big attack that ignores reductions. Eald can Terra loop pretty much this entire fight, but you also do need to break the guy to fulfill the orb, so that's something to be aware of. When it hits 50%, it's gonna transform into a completely new boss, so goodbye to your debuffs. It's a new registered on the field. It's C instead of A as it was before. Anyways, it charges up an attack, and the only way to not get blown up by it is to not let it get turns, and it does frame its turn, by the way. It's only delayable by break delay. So either if you don't want to get hit, it's like a triple reduction ignoring HP attack. You really don't want to get hit by this. You'll probably almost definitely die because the triple HP deck means it'll double tap last stand too. If you stun it, it'll get nerfed down to just a regular Brave plus HP attack that is livable more than likely. And if you stun it twice, then it will just not blow you up at all. And that's the trick for this part, and then it becomes sort of a semi-damage race. Not much to say about that. Good characters for this fight. Not Terra. Again, the magic counter is on the second half of this fight. So unless you want to do big brain strats with Paralyze and Bart's and Fujin because it's Imperial immune. Not want to bring a magic dealer, but it can work. I'm just not advising it. Or if you want to do it, somebody like Clay from Dystopia or someone would probably do something insane like that, but not me. But like Aranea for the break delay, Eldnarsh to lock him down, Edward and Arciella's base call and Edward's LD call to stun the guy, or just Eldnarsh in the party. Maybe some RNG with Waka. There's a ton of options to deal with it, and I think this is a good like middle ground for an interesting fight. In JP, I ran Galuf, Galuf, Camlinot, the better brother, fight me, and Noel. I did Noel for the rebreak. Galuf was protecting us while the boss was standing up, and Cam reduced the effectiveness of the boss because with his attack down, and also Cam had the paralyze, so I was actually able to stun the boss for quite a bit solely because Cam locked him down. So I didn't need he's a good choice is what I'm trying to say. But then I took a little long. I actually poorly played that fight, and Alphino, the goofball on YouTube who does Brave Gain up run, shout out to him. He played that much better than me, but yeah, Camlinot's actually, I think, a solid option here just for the stuns and the delay and the attack down. I think you can actually, even though the boss ignores Brave reductions, I think you can attack down it. There might be some debuff shenanigans. Maybe Vincent might eat a little better here on this fight too. That's, at least in my head, might happen. But yeah, obviously Noel, Aranea, Lightning, even though Imperial immune, Lightning can still hit hard. Tons of options here. Who am I running now? I'm gonna run Noel again, absolutely. I'm gonna run Aranea because I keep on spamming her. And my third, I don't know. No, not Edward because it's not. Maybe I'll run Eldnarsh and I'll go a full debuff team. Or maybe I'll run who's a physical attacker that I like running. Maybe I'll run Kieran or something, or Warrior Light. Yeah, I'm feeling or Pecil. Why don't I just run Pecil? He's valid here. Yeah, let's do that. Anyways, yeah, that's what I think about. It should be a decently fun event and a nice start to the month. I know people aren't super excited about Eldnarsh being included, but Noel hype through the roof, blue armor frame 1. Let's get it. Strago's Lost Chapter. This is a fun time. It feels like yesterday where I was saying Realm is not the prize at the banner. And Realm did not get her LD here, but Ashe is getting an LD here, and Strago's getting his LD board. So let's talk about their upgrades right quick. Strago is not getting reworked, but he didn't need it. However, he is getting LD boards. Strago's actual LD attack does more hits now. It hits harder, and it gives him his skill 1 buff for some reason. I don't know why, but the big thing is that now Strago's every time he grants himself a buff, it is extended by 1 turn. So where previously he had some buff upkeep issues on his double cast buff, now he's gonna, whenever he grants himself that, he's gonna grant it for 3 turns. So he's gonna have no downtime on it, period. And the double cast buff that he's not gonna have downtime on, now it's got more attack up, brave damage up 30%, which is huge for him. Overflow up, and HP damage up 20%. So he got the works right here. It sounds like a little on paper, but in practice, this especially that overflow, when he's got those AoE skills, it means he's just nuclear. It's actually insane. Calls, base call is skill 2, so if the enemy's got even brave, he'll break them, and his LD attack only casts, and both of these calls only cast once, unfortunately, but it is an instant break if they have brave, and a rebreak if they do not have brave. Base call gives attack and brave to the caller, and the LD call gives attack up and overflow. You probably aren't using these much unless it's a situational case, but yeah, it's solid damage, I guess. Lastly, his high armor plus leans in the HP direction, which means he can hit really high HP damage caps, which is pretty easy for Strago to do with his new upgrades on his LD board, with the HP damage up and the overflow and the attack up, brave damage, etc. And especially if you pump that up with other HP cap up armors, he can do millions of damage with a single button press. Very, very competitive damage. It's actually insane. Now onto Ashe. Her rework actually wasn't that significant. She got splash damage on both skills, and her skill 1 has more hits now, 50% splash on both, that is. However, her LD is super duper loaded. My god, it's a 100% AoE attack. That's not the important part. But she gets a new buff for the party, and it gives overflow, 10% HP regen, so that's she's a healer now, which is fantastic. She double enchants the party, so she enchants the party with thunder and she enchants the party with holy. And the cool thing about double enchant is if any of them are locked out, or if one of them is locked out, I should say, but both aren't, then the one that's hitting weakness will go through. So this is stellar. It's pretty much impossible to shut Ashe out, unless obviously Imperial immune fight. Additionally, she's got weakness damage up, and every time she does an HP attack with her skills, with her regular HP attack, with her EX, with her LD, she will inflict the framed Holy and Thunder resist down. So she's always going to keep this debuff up. Very, very good. And she also has a personal HP damage up 20%. So her damage is also now very, very decent. She also starts the fight with this buff, so there's no real worry about needing to set up or anything. You're good to go from the jump, provided you got her LD boards, obviously. And weakness damage up and HP regen isn't even the best part of what she got. Now, after using her LD, she gets a special HP attack, right? It's a one-time use, but it has an Onion Knight effect to where she swaps, Onion Knight, or Ignis did it too, I guess, but it swaps both party members right after Ashe, and it charges their EX gauge. Additionally, it grants everyone except Ashe a new buff for 4 turns, and this is important. It might look like, and this is an issue with Ashe's kit overall, if you're just looking at her numbers raw and not in context, it says on the description that it gives them a buff for 1 turn. But if you actually see it in context, Ashe's EX Plus passive has a thing that extends all granted buffs by her for 3 extra turns. So in practice, this is a 4-turn buff you're applying to your teammates. That applies to all her other buffs previously as well. She does not have buff upkeep issues as well, and I hope that that doesn't spread around. But this 4-turn buff now gives the person it's granted to Brave damage up 30, Overflow up 30, HP damage up by 30%, which is significant. On top of all the other steroids Ashe is giving the party, now she's giving them a temporary 30% HP damage up, which can be planned around, and it has 4 uses, so that's 16 turns in total of potential HP damage up like that, which is crazy. Again, weakness damage and all the other goodies Ashe gives on top of that equals setting up for some really powerful burst phases, and this not being on the whole battle is not an issue because it's so loaded. And when I say burst phases, I mean just general damage really quickly. I don't mean burst because this buff cannot be extended and it will go down within burst. This is also great for Ashe's base kit. So you're basically at the point where you're pretty much just LD, EX, and HP, special HP with turn manipulation. So you can get her paralyzed off more consistently. You can set up an LD, and then you can, well, it does require a little bit of setup and knowing what you're doing in advance, but Ashe's bread and butter are now her LD, EX, and special HP attack, and her skills are in between just for buff upkeep and filler, etc. She really is fantastic. I know people who got use out of her for like months on end. It's actually crazy. Her calls, her base call is skill 2. It's going to inflict speed down, and if you have her LD maxed, it will actually, since she has her special buff start, this will actually apply the Holy and Thunder resist down, which can be situationally handy, and it's got a decent buff to the party for physical and M brave up, so that's all right. And her LD call, very nice. You're not going to get any turn manipulation out of it, but you do get the weakness damage up on the effect, overflow, and you're going to enchant the party, so another enchant call, which is hilariously valuable as usual, and it's got HP regen on the call as well. So this is a very, very strong call ability as well, and it lasts 6 turns. Oh lord, yes, that's a good one. Lastly, she gets the Unity high armor, which makes sense because she's got weakness damage up and she's an enchanter, so she'll help you reach higher brave caps, and her high armor plus has an even split between brave and HP, also makes sense. She has HP damage up, but the brave damage with Ashe is pretty important as well. So you'll definitely be hitting higher caps if you blue Ashe. Obviously not necessary. Do what you will, given to who you're going to use a lot, etc. What do I think? I think this banner is fantastic, especially for new players who are looking to get a damage dealer and an enchanter who covers a lot of roles. Ashe and Strago is definitely it. Strago has results like crazy, again, just like I pointed out way back on his event. Segan runs him into the ground. Strago has results like crazy with him. Stimpy, if you check out some of his, I think it's a Strago bazooka damage videos where he has a blue Strago and he just blows things to pieces. It's actually incredible. Strago is also guaranteed to get even stronger. We know this with Crystal level 90 down the road where he gets an EX extension and even more ridiculous again without a rework. This guy ages like wine. It's hilarious because he's already old. Top of that, Strago can't even get hit with the usual just a damage dealer because he's got the utility with his rebreaks and instant break on skill 2 and LD respectively-ish. I said that in order, but you know what the skills do. And the only really downside that I can think of Strago, because again, he's self-sufficient now a lot more just because you got the brave and HP damage up in the overflows. So he's hitting far higher numbers than you could read on paper. The only really big issue is that without blue, he's not even close to reaching his potential. The difference between a base high armor Strago and a blue armor Strago is actually pretty insane, especially because you got the high HP caps. So if you're not planning to blue Strago, you definitely won't see that power. But if you do go that way, and I know some people are, and they're going to be laughing their way to the bank, the Strago just nukes everything in sight for the next couple months minimum. It's pretty big. As for Ashe, she is loaded. She now has HP regen, weakness damage up for the party, turn manipulation, EX charge, HP damage up for the party on her turn manipulation with her EX, instant, well, not instant paralyze, but you can set up a paralyze pretty easily, although it is single target. Feels bad. They'll probably fix that on her EX extension too. Ashe is also very, very good. Again, I can't say it enough, this is a fantastic banner. I don't really have any issues with any of these characters at all. Am I pulling though? Well, unfortunately not. I don't plan to blue Strago, but I do have his LD already, so that's less incentive to pull. I acknowledge Ashe's strengths, and again, she's fantastic, but I don't see myself using her much personally. If I get her LD on the free, obviously I'd invest in her, but not a general target of mine. I hate the lazy comparisons, because you know there's the what are the Galaxy Brain things you could say? Strago is a non-elemental Talum, Magic Squall. My brain hurts. And Ashe is an offensive Paladin Cecil dash. Never mind. Anyways, odds are if you've been playing long enough, you probably have roster coverage that covers both of these two. That's not to say that anybody's equivalent, but you can definitely live without them, but they are hilariously strong, and I can acknowledge that and also acknowledge that I can live without them. I think that's a fair take. I'd recommend people who are struggling with turn count or need enchant or just heals in general, like this is a godly banner. But for veterans, it's an easier time to pass, I'd imagine. I passed this banner in JP. I also similarly had Strago then, and never felt like I missed out on not having Ashe, but it was cool seeing the people run her for insane amounts of time. Strago does have 2 known reruns. One when Cloud of Darkness Burst Plus comes back. He's the other LD on the banner. He's a bit out of his prime by that point, unfortunately. So you'd be Constellation if you're going for Cloud of Darkness BT there, or LD, whatever. And the second rerun is on Edgar's Intertwined Will, which, if you're not aware, in JP, it's like Lost Chapter 2, and this is where he gets his crystal level 90. And he gets even bigger upgrades and more damage, and he's even more consistent then. So Strago, every tuning pass, he's always good. Can't go wrong with him now, can't go wrong with him later. If you're skipping because you get stronger down the line in C90, that's really silly, because you're gonna have to end up bluing his armor anyways. So know if you're pulling, know why you're gonna pull, and if you're skipping, know why you're gonna skip. As for Ashe, I believe her only known rerun is when Zack gets his LD down the road. Yeah, it's an in-between banner during RNA's Lost Chapter and Quistis's LD Heretics. So, but at that point, Ashe is also a bit dated. So if you're getting her there, she'd be Constellation. But I mean, otherwise, as I always say, when someone gets an update, this is really the time to be using them. Fight is interesting. It's our first 2-wave fight in a bit. The first wave doesn't have an orb. It's these giant turret spider thingies, and if they get the all attack off, they can actually kind of murder you. So you don't want them to get that off. Some popular strategies were to summon early, or maybe bring in a Garland friend to delay them early. But if you get murdered, you can die to the first wave. So watch out for that. But the second wave, there is the same bosses from the event, and it is. The orb is to deal thunder and holy damage at the same time. Well, let me rephrase that. It's thunder +1 when you hit them with thunder, and holy +1. So they're selling Ashe by that. You get pretty much easy orb control if you hit with both elements at the same time. This can be replicated in the party though if you bring 2 enchanters, such as, I don't know, Paladin Cecil and Desh or Kryl, for example. So that's the safest combo. Or you can just bring one of them and damage reset down with like Tifa potentially. They do go into phases where they have their element shenanigans, where they resist certain ones and they absorb others, and they need instant break. I don't know the exact mechanics for those, but it's pretty choreographed, and so you're best off bringing someone who can pop their brave pretty easily. So Noel, Bart's probably more consistent. Gabron, Strago, obviously, to sell that feature. There's a ton of options for this fight. Trey, Galuf is actually a really good option because he dodges a lot of their physical attacks, and then if he's enchanted and he hits them on the off turn, this same applies to Trey as well, then you'll actually be able to satisfy the orb and keep it a lot safer. But a lot of people will probably just Paladin Cecil and Tifa this one down, understandably so. But who will I be running? Well, in JP, I ran Noel and Galuf and Paladin Cecil. Noel took care of the breaks, Galuf handled the orb in the off turn, so I could afford to bring 1 enchanter, and then Paladin Cecil kept us healthy and enchanted us. This time in global, I'm not going to use Noel here because I already used him in JP, but I'm thinking I'm gonna run like maybe Cecil, Dash or maybe Kryl, Dash or Kryl, probably Kryl actually, just because I ain't used her in a minute. And Trey, I think that'd be fun, just because I haven't used Trey in a minute either. Get the off turn and the breaks and stuff, and it should be a pretty smooth time. Act 3, Chapter 3, Part 2. We have Iroha, the Phoenix girl. She's got really gorgeous animations, and that's part of why I think she's getting hyped, but I'm here to deflate that parade a bit. Spoiler alert, I don't think she's too great. I think she's being overhyped for a lot of the wrong reasons, but let's talk about what she does first, and I can explain my thoughts why. It's kind of hard to put Iroha in a box because she does a whole bunch of different things, and she doesn't do all of them spectacularly well. She batteries, she heals, she's got okay-ish damage, she's got serviceable auras. I wouldn't even go that far, just her auras exist. She's all over the place, so I'll just break it down a little. Skill 1 is her bread and butter. It heals the party, batteries the party after damage dealt, and it's an attack with 50% splash. Gives Iroha one of her important buffs, being that she only, this is for herself, not for the party. I'll get to the party part later, but it makes it so that whenever Iroha deals HP damage, it expends only 80% of it. So think if she's doing when you do an HP damage attack, you use up your bravery. So you do 100 damage. Normally you go to 0 because you used up all 100. But with Iroha's buff, and this is just her skill 1 buff, when she does an HP attack, she will only use 80% of that brave, and she'll keep 20% of it. So like think of it like a brave coupon, brave discount. She's not using all the brave when she attacks basically, and this allows for her to have a better floor for when she does HP attacks, and it's useful in certain contexts as an aura, but I'll go into that. The skill 1 buff is just for her. This is just me explaining the concept. And lastly, skill 1 transforms her skill 2 into the plus version, which is the only version you should use, and I'll talk about that right now. Skill 2 is her damage skill, and while she's got 2 versions of it, you should only be pressing the plus version, which is the fusion version. And the way you get this fusion version are using skill 1 beforehand or LD beforehand. So if you have the regular skill 2, you really shouldn't be pressing it. You should be pressing skill 1 or LD or something else. But it's just a split AoE HP, double HP attack. Just damage, nothing else really to talk about there. Once you use the plus version, it'll change back to the base version, which again, I've said it so many times, just don't use it. Her EX is the really pretty move, and where things start to get even more interesting. So it's a quadruple brave plus HP attack, single target, and splashes afterwards. And after the first use, this is where things get interesting. Her recast gauge doesn't actually go down, and her EX transforms into the plus version as well. So functionally, you're going to cast the EX twice in a row. Very strange. It's all single target, but it does have 20% splash at the end. And this plus version hits a little bit harder, and it refunds the party a bit more harder based on damage done. She also gets a 20% M Brave regen for herself based on this buff, so it's helping her keep her self-sufficient, I should say. And with her effect not dumping as much Brave when she HP attacks, this will actually do deceptively more damage again. Now to round the rest of her kit out, we have her LD, a huge, enormous burst heal for 50% of the party's HP, and then it's a double AoE group Brave plus HP attack. Batteries the party and gives her an overhead and transforms skill 2 into the plus version. Overhead is her claim to fame, and it gives the whole party the ability to also not expend all of their brave when they HP attack and expend only 80% of it. So the whole burn 100 but actually keep 20% of it, that's this again for the party. And this actually stacks with Iroha's skill 1. So if Iroha is effectively saving 40% of her brave, or she's expending 60% when she does attacks. And the numbers, I usually don't like to go into numbers, but the numbers are important here. It's a very small attack up and overflow up for the party, and 20% brave damage up for the party. So at this point, we've gone over all of Iroha's auras, which are, let's see, about 40% attack, 20% M brave, 20% stolen overflow, 20% brave damage up, and then the brave coupon thing. So that in total is less, it's not very competitive at all. You're not bringing Iroha for her buffs. If you say Iroha has good auras, I don't know what you're looking at, honestly. Like, these numbers are not good for making the party hit hard. She's mainly there in the party to heal, battery, and do the brave. I keep calling it different things. It's so inconsistent. I can't wait to see what they localize it because I need help explaining it. But now that I've given some context to her kit, this is how you use her. You open with LD. You get a free skill use after LD. I don't think I mentioned that yet. And so her C65 actually increases her recast. So you burn the free skill on the recast up. And then you, I think you skill 2, because it should be the plus version after you've LD'd. And then your EX should be up after that. If not, then just press skill 1 as filler. And then you double tap the EX both times. And you just kind of go in a, I hate saying rotations in this game, but if skill 2 is in the plus version, press skill 1. Or if you want to just start spamming LD, or you want to get your EX up fast, you can use C65. There's a bunch of things you can do with Iroha, but you want the meat of her damage is from her EX back to back. That's really how you can really pump out the damage with her. The circles back around to what I said before, where she's in a weird spot where her party buffs aren't really anything to really pay attention to aside from the Brave discount thing. And she's got the solid double tap on her EX on consecutive, well, it's not consecutive turns, but she's going to do her EX twice in a row, with the second version being more powerful. But her damage isn't super impressive there either, so I'm not quite sure what they were trying to go for with her, and personally I'm not terribly impressed by what it is. But let me save my thoughts for a bit, just a little bit more to talk about. Her base call is her skill 1, it's party heal, splash attack. It's decent. It's got a decent party aura and brave attack on top of it, and her skill 2 actually gives her LD effect as an aura, but it lasts 2 turns. This call effect is up, you will expend only 80% of your brave when you HP attack. Now, this is not a call worth pulling for, especially in a month where we're getting Kurasame. Kurasame's LD call released, and we have Jack, and we have Gabranth, and we have other actually useful calls. This is niche at best and bait for people who like to theorycraft stuff but never actually do it in context. Do not pull for this call. It is a horrible idea and you will never use it, okay? And okay, let me not be extreme when I say that. You'll maybe use it if you really wanted to, but this is not even close to competing with Jack, Kurasame, Gabranth, the usual call cap damage souffle. Like just don't do it. Her high armor at base is encouragement, so 30% brave gain up, which is pretty much essential for her. Running Iroha without this armor, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You need this armor for Iroha. And the rest of it is a party split for HP damage. Now, I am not quite sure how effective or smart a decision it would be to put this on her, because she doesn't hit terribly hard, and she doesn't have any HP damage modifiers for the party. So I don't know how you're going to be breaking those caps if Iroha's armor is blue, so use caution if you're gonna do this. It doesn't sound good to me on paper, but maybe I'm wrong. And the last thing inherent to her kit that I want to talk about here is her sphere. Her sphere batteries you. The person who has the sphere equipped, it is not the party, based on 10% of max brave. It is selfish. People are under the impression, and I guess I didn't make this clear in my encouragement armor video when I was talking about how the sphere interaction changes down the road. In practice, it's gonna be like 10k brave at most, maybe, if you're using Iroha's regular sphere. That's not even the RF. And it gets even worse once we get to Lufendia Plus and there's higher brave gain reductions and you're not supplementing it with a brave gain upper. So this is not a sphere to drool over either. It is mid at best. This isn't it either, guys. So it's been kind of bleeding over, but what do I think about Iroha? I think she's kind of just meh. Not very up on her, and it's totally not because I spent 600 tickets on her in JP and then barely used her anyways. She's got okay damage, but it's not competing with what Tifa, Noel, Golbez, Strago. So she's not a primary damage dealer, and she's not the best healer. Her auras are middling, not even middling. It's just worse than, like, because we just got Ashe. I think Noel has a better attack aura than her. He doesn't have the brave damage up in the battery, and it's not a direct comparison. But what I'm trying to say is that she's not fulfilling the buffer role either, and she's just this weird gimmick character, and the gimmick isn't even that great because it really only shines with people who have multiple HP attacks. So think like Golbez, Tifa, Terra, maybe Strago. Who else has multiple HP attacks? I don't know, but the benefit from having her brave discount is not super, and you could just do other things like increase HP damage up, use a burst. That's not a fair comparison to compare to a burst, but what I'm trying to say here is I don't think she's really that impactful. Usable, sure, but in my experience with her in JP, every time I go, okay, let me try and bring Iroha on this team, I had to ask myself why, because I could accomplish things perfectly fine and not feel like she contributed all that much. So she does have really ridiculously good synergy with Ashe, because with Ashe you can go back and forth, you can ping pong Iroha's EX to where it's up pretty much all the time, and this definitely showcases her ability to pump out damage with her EX. But if you're not doing that, she's just kind of there, and that's a party slot you could potentially be doing something else in, and I'm really not up on her. I think she's massively being overrated just because she's got pretty animations and she's got a really interesting new effect that sounds really good on paper, but I don't think a lot of people are going to quite put it to use and practice and opting to run other stronger strategies instead. Yeah, and the sphere, I swear to God, if someone tells me Iroha has good auras, bro, I just not like Rude again. It's not there. Her sphere is massively overrated. I've seen so many people go like, wait, it doesn't battery the party? It's an A sphere, dog. Those are always selfish. I can't even think quite like what Lufenia's Iroha could potentially be useful in, but that's not a good match because my memory is not very great in that regard, and I didn't do much looking into it anyway. So again, always take it with your grain of salt, but personally, I don't think she's very good. I think she's extremely overrated. Am I pulling? Hell no. Not after that 600 plus ticket fiasco in JP, only for me to end up not using her. I've used her call sparingly, and that's only because I wanted to screw around. But other than that, man, I just could never find a good use for her. I really don't think she's that good, bruh. And I got no interest in whatever's on her banner, no interest in Papa or Saz EX, no interest in Eldnar Spurs. This is a complete dud of a banner to me. It's just not it. It's just not it for me. I could totally live without her. Not much to say again in that front. Her only known rerun is down the line when Vayne gets an LD and burst. It's on Vayne's LD banner, so if you're pulling her Vayne's LD, you might get her as consolation there. If I do decide to pull Vayne down the line, I'd much rather potentially get her there rather than wasting my resources here and for someone I'm never going to use anyways. So yeah, that's what it is. The Lufenia is an interesting one. The orb is to have all of the party members above 15,000 brave after their turn ends, which Iroha can pretty easily satisfy because you're not expending all of your brave after HP attacking with her, and she batteries and refunds and stuff like that. So that's not, there's a couple units that can hit that, like Bart's BT or self-sufficient units that refund themselves, so like Cam, Golbez, Bart's, I can't think of all of them, but there's ways around that, or just battery off after the turn, so Galuf probably. Who else am I thinking of? Kryl. The only issue with some of those units is that this is a heavy melee resist fight. So if you're bringing someone who does melee, you gotta enchant them. Bart's obviously can handle that himself, but working around that can be a potential pain. Guy is actually a fantastic character here because of his post-turn M Brave regen. So Guy, Chad, stand up and clap because this is a great fight to use him in. Other than that, the whales actually aren't terribly deadly, but they do have phases where they get shields. And if you don't break them, you get blown up AoE. So break their shields, and they're like fat shields, like 100, 200k, I think. And you want to keep them broken. So Ferris is either in the party or as a call is actually good for that because it'll set their brave down to 0. Because you need to, if you don't break them, if you don't keep them broken constantly, and they're gonna enrage, and that's when things get really nasty. So if you keep them broken, this fight's pretty smooth sailing. So nothing really to say on that front. Just be careful. Later in the fight, they frame their turns, and then it can get trickier to break them when you want to. And again, this is showing Iroha because she's got that really strong double tap EX, and it'll be able to cut down targets pretty well. That being said, I mentioned some earlier good units like Guy, Kryl, Enchanted Galuf. Strago obviously can pop their brave and just nuke them down. Ashe functioning alongside, what's it called? Iroha, how do I forget her name? We're just enchanting anybody else is obviously good with turn manipulation as well. Trey to pop them. Yeah, a bunch of options here. Again, content's getting less restrictive again, so I'm curious to see what some Galaxy Brain strategies come up here. In JP, I ran this twice actually. So one run, the YouTube run, I ran Iroha, Guy, and Tifa, and then I did an offline run of Celes, Noel, and was it Iroha as well? I don't remember, but I didn't record it. I wish I would have. So I'm gonna try and Galaxy Brain a Noel run out of myself again, and because it's heavy melee resist, I'm gonna bring Bart's for his skill 2, and I'm going to bring Trial for the post-turn battery, because her EX effect for the team, and to also enchant the rest of Noel stuff and weakness damage up. Should be good because these guys don't HP attack really, so we shouldn't be seeing any attacks. Let's see if that works. I'm actually pretty excited for this fight, to be honest. Layle's oh god, what is this going to be called? This changed from JP. What was formerly known as the 6-man co-op event. The event that bombed so hard that Global caught up to the same period in JP, and it still has yet to return as an official event. They scrapped that so hard, it is hilarious. If you're curious as to what it was like, because it doesn't matter now for Global because we're not going to see it, if you're curious what that was like, I recorded one run of it with my idiot buddies, where we kind of laughed at how ridiculous it was and did a couple stupid runs. It's called Black Nero Co-op Comedy, so you can search that, or I'll link it too. But it was it was a good time. But anyways, Layle's the star here. Layle's getting an upgrade. So let's talk a little bit about what Layle is getting, or got previously. I don't know. Anyways, Layle is getting a rework. His skill 1 now batteries the party before the brave hits, and the brave hits are now AoE, and the attack has 50% splash, and it still applies to the force debuff, which gets enemies into the air easier. Skill 2 didn't really change, except that it's easier to launch enemies now, so I think it's pretty much a guaranteed launch with skill 2, whereas before it wasn't quite guaranteed, so skill 2 you're pretty much good now. And with both skills, what's even newer is that Layle actually now hits weakness damage if he's hitting enemies with his unique force debuff active. So he's actually hitting a lot harder. Layle's LD attack is a double split AoE, brave plus HP, pretty standard stuff. Party battery and refund afterwards for Layle, and it launches the target and it makes the other one launchable, and it also inflicts his force debuff and hits weakness on people inflicted with the force debuff, so it's a pretty hard hitting skill as well. And Layle turn manipulates, but he moves himself behind a unit of choice, and this is probably good for 1, general turn manipulation obviously, and 2, setting up more launches. I forgot to mention earlier, I don't know if it's his LD that does this or if it's just his base kit, but his force debuff is now framed, so it doesn't get pushed off, and along with the 8 debuff, quality of life means force is pretty much you could manage it pretty easily, which is another great quality of life for Layle. Anyway, Layle gets his new overhead from his LD, and it gives him a fat attack up, which combined with the limit breaks on his LD gives him a substantial. He's hitting a lot harder, especially with that weakness damage on the force debuff active now. Overflow up, and after Layle's turn is over, he actually gives the party brave back based on how much HP damage he did. I think it's 10%, which is pretty good. He gets an Embrave region for himself, so he's always got brave on his turns, and whenever he initiates a launch, no matter the turn order, the whole party will partake in it. So now Layle batteries on all skills except his EX, and this will definitely get fixed down the line with his Crystal 90. So Layle's battering on everything, and he can pretty much launch on every turn because force is up and his EX buff is up. So you're doing full party launches on all of Layle's turns, pretty much, barring some outliers, obviously. But yeah, so everyone's always in the air with Layle, and everyone's always partaking. Everyone will always have brave just because he always batteries. It's a very fluid kit, and they rounded him out very well. Also didn't mention that he gets debuff start with his LD, so the enemies will actually start with force, so he'll be hitting weakness damage and launching like crazy off the bat. Sadly, they don't start him with this EX buff, which hurts because the enemies aren't as launchable, but that'll probably get fixed down the line as well, but it's just a minor gripe. He also gets a special one-time HP after using his LD that batteries the party and launches, and it's also pretty good, but it's only one-time use. But it's nice if you need to get a launch off real quick and don't know how else to do it. His base call is skill 2, just does a launch, pretty basic stuff. LD call also launches and sets, well, it's an AoE attack, so it makes all the targets launchable after doing the main one single target. No turn manipulation here, but in the effect is a slight attack up, overflow, and Embrave region, which is alright. Depends, very useful if you're trying to set up launches, obviously. And what's important to note on his calls is that, assuming you have his LD maxed out, that he has debuff start, so he'll actually apply the force debuff when you pull him out for the calls, which is situationally also very useful. Icing on the cake, he is getting a burst. He is a burst character. The effect, well, first off, the music is really cool in this fight. Really makes you want to play his game. But the effect, you get chase HP damage up, which already stacks when Layle initiates an HP damage, or excuse me, when Layle initiates a launch. If you didn't know this, on Layle's character board passives, he also got HP damage up when people partake in a launch. So that increases that as well. And if you're running Layle, you're obviously running Panda Summon, so that's going to stack as well. So you're getting really big damage in midair with Layle on the party. Embrave cap up, which is pretty significant, especially with all those HP damage modifiers. You're hitting really high numbers in midair without really having to try to. And there's party HP damage refund based on after every turn that the party member goes, you get refund based on that. It's also pretty good, and enemies are more easily launchable. So you're pretty much, while Layle's burst effect is in the air, enemies are going up every single turn. It's pretty crazy. Layle has the encouragement, the battery high armor, which again is necessary for him because he does so many brave gains in his kit. You need this armor for Layle. Additionally, he's got the HP damage split. So again, he's got so many HP damage modifiers when you're in the air and you're doing launches and stuff that, and you're running Panda with Layle, obviously. He heavily takes advantage of that high HP damage cap. Very good for him. What do I think about Layle? I think Layle is fantastic, and there aren't YouTube results to show it. My buddy Loken, he ran Layle, and no, not even ran past tense. He is still running Layle through Lufenia Plus. This dude enables launchers like crazy. He is one his own. He is the OG launcher, putting people in the air. You enable him with like stuff like Kai's Call, other launchers, HP damage up effects, and you just send people in the air. Skyrockets your score. Convenient for turn count because you're very turn efficient, doing multiple HP attacks in midair. Layle returns and dominates as the launch king. He buffs the party, crazy battery. This man has results like crazy, and it's just not on YouTube. And the I haven't seen him shows it's that take shows how dumb it is, because just because it ain't on YouTube doesn't mean it ain't been happening. Like for real. Layle's incredible. I think he's fantastic, especially with that burst. He can put up a lot of numbers, and he only gets better with time as we get more brave gain up supports like Porom and Stola and Bart's down the line, where you can make sure his batteries stay consistent and just pump out the numbers and the launches and the delays, because he's got the speed down and the turn manipulation with his LD and his skill 2, etc. He's got a lot going for him, and we should really be putting a lot of respect on his name, because Layle's pretty much always been good in this game. It's just not always been super accessible, except back during the C50 or C60 era. I don't remember what it was. It was Layle, Kate, Selfie, and doing launch meta. Those teams are possible again, and Layle enables a lot of it. The only thing he has in common with Sid Reigns is that he has battery and they go in the air. It's such, actually I don't even want to entertain that, just please no. I swear everybody gets really smooth brained when it comes to launch units. And he's not Kais. Kais enables them. We should understand the Layle and Kais synergy by now. Layle puts people in the air, Kais batteries while people are in the air. Really, it shouldn't need to be brought up at this point. Launch is very powerful, and again, I can't say it enough. Layle has results, just not in recording. Am I pulling on this banner? Yes, absolutely. I think Layle's fantastic. 2 weeks synergy. I'm not going to chase his burst, but I might consider tokening it, depending on my choices down the line, just because it's a different playstyle. Again, he's got results, and he is pretty much a hard carry for Transcendence 3, where the left side wants a yellow crystal and it's a launch orb. So Layle LD pretty much makes it cake. So you can't really go wrong with him there either. What else? Kais is on the banner, but I already have Kais. So those people who said they were skipping Kais for this banner, are you gonna pull through? Are you gonna follow through on your words? Are you pulling for Kais here now, or are you gonna like, wait, I'm not about to use Kais anymore? Because if you ain't used Kais by now, you probably aren't gonna, for real. Like, people have been Square Enix airlining him like crazy, but I mean, if you missed out on that, you're probably a little salty, and yeah, so sorry, you kind of fell for the meme. Celes and Cryle are on the other banner, and those two, along with Kais, are also getting high armor plus. I'm not going to go over those splits because those are older units, and if you're bluing them, you're doing it just because you feel like it. But yeah, this is definitely an ideal banner for me. I'm pulling good for all the events in his cycle. Layle does not have a known rerun, and we don't know what his burst plus or crystal level 90 EX extension 2 is going to look like, so this is definitely the time to grab him, because who knows what the future may hold at this point. The Lufenia isn't terribly menacing at all. It's actually kind of cake. So JP actually had a bugged version, so if you go back and watch JP videos, including mine, I think, well, the way that, let me explain the fight in context first. The fight is just a launch orb, and that's it. Launch them plus 10. This is Square Enix Airlines, it's just food. However, they do go into a mode eventually where you need to launch them, or else they have HP damage reduction like crazy. And this was what was bugged in JP, because you didn't actually need to launch them to get rid of it. It just didn't activate. So I actually figured this out later when I tried the fight again, doing a Noel run offline again. Like, I didn't record like an idiot again, but I was like, wait, why am I doing no damage? And it turned out you need to launch them to get rid of that HP damage reduction. Reading feels can't read Japanese, man. So yeah, don't use videos in JP as a reference for this fight, because a lot of them didn't realize the bug happened, at least the English speakers. I don't think they had anything threatening at some point. They have some weird turn manipulation gimmick, but this fight is honestly probably going to get steamrolled by most people. Layle obviously makes the cake. Layle, Kais, just general airlines, Rhymes the Cloud. Who else launches? Pecil. Yeah, Tifa launches, I guess, so even more reason to bring her again. there's so much you can do with this fight. Not really anything noteworthy. Once again, a nice breather from last month. In JP, wow, I'm actually surprised. I just looked it up now. I actually ran Iroha here. Surprised. I think that was the last time I ran her in the party. Iroha, Layle, and Kais reuniting the buddies together. Just a launch orb, and it just kind of DPS'd it down. It wasn't very exciting. So this time around, I want to use Layle again, just because I ain't used them in a minute. But maybe I'll run like Ramza, or maybe I'll go straight up airlines. I don't know. I might try out airlines, because I ain't done it often. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Good luck, guys. As for the changes to the event, so I'm making this video in advance, and I have no idea how the event might go. It's dependent on a lot of things. It still appears to be RNG farming based on when Gilgamesh might appear, and there was a chaos co-op for this JP side. So the fact that they took away the 6-man part is hilarious, but that still doesn't quite fix it. So to be determined how the event will go. Hopefully it doesn't suck. I'm not getting my hopes up, because RNG farming at its base for rewards and a burst token sounds horrible. So hopefully, fingers crossed, please get it right, devs, please, I'm begging you. I really don't want to grind this again. Kurasame Lost Chapter, probably one of the more hype banners of this month, and for once I actually have no brakes to put on this train. Kurasame is coming back. He's not getting a rework, but he is getting LD boards only. His LD boards give him a slight attack up. It increases the number of hits on his LD attack, so it's still 1 HP attack unfortunately, but it's got more hits. And he gets a free skill use afterwards. Whether it's practical to use it on C65 or not, I don't know, and I don't think I really care, because no one's really running Kurasame in their party for this, except for the dedicated people. But most of us normal humans are using them as a call, but I'll get into that later. Also with his LD boards though, he gets Party Ice Enchant. This was unexpected. I remember at the time when this came out, I honestly didn't expect him to get this, but he did. He gets Party Ice Enchant, so he's now a full-fledged Ice Enchanter up there with Celas and Onion Knight. He gets a weak damage up as well, which is also really good. And he also gets a personal weakness damage up. So Kurasame is hitting a lot harder personally, which brings him more in line with the current content, which is actually really good. Now for his calls, and this is really the meat of it. And I want to preface this by saying I'm not huge on pulling for calls. I think it's generally overstated. That I think it's a bit of a meme, pulling for calls, unless there's some outliers like Jack. But Kurasame, I would say, is probably the #1 call in the game, even to this day in JP, full stop. There is no competition. This is quite literally, in JP, a lot of us, we build our teams around Kurasame's call. Like we get our stuff together and we're like, all right, Kurasame call, now what? That is how impactful this is. I know everyone who missed out on it in JP regrets it, full stop, unless you're bugging. I don't know why you'd say that, but this is, I feel confident saying this is literally the best LD call in the game. Kurasame has debuff start, right? So when you call him in, he applies his HP damage up debuff. His base call, it gives a ice enchant to the caller, and it also applies an extra stack of his HP damage up buff, which is okay, I guess. But yeah, the caller having this effect is solid. So even if you don't have his LD, this effect in itself, assuming you purple to ZX, is already pretty good. It's just another pocket HP damage up with ice enchant. His LD call does the attack, and then it enchants the entire party with ice for 3 turns. It also gives attack and brave and weakness damage up. So not only is the party enchanted, they're also getting a weakness damage up modifier. So put this on someone slow and you're good. And the icing on the cake of both of these calls is, since it has debuff start, you're getting a guaranteed 6 turns a pop on each LD call for the debuff. That's 12 turns of HP damage up in total. That can be increased and it goes up and down based on the turns enemy gets, or you can just knock them both down at once if you're not giving the boss turns. And at max, Kurasame's LD debuff goes up to 30%. So 30% HP damage damage up the entire battle, just on a call. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between a quick run and a potential dead run and potential success. And I can definitively say that this run has contributed to many successes I've had in JP. It's that ridiculous. This is the best call ability in the game, and they start kind of nerfing some debuff calls after this, and I think it's solely because they forgot how ridiculous debuff start with Kurasame could be. This is not overrated. This is broken. A ridiculous call. Everyone should be getting this, honestly. And his high armor plus is a even split between Brave and HP for the party. So he does have HP damage modifiers, and he does have weakness damage up for the party. So this could potentially be useful, but this would also require you to have Kurasame in the team and not as a call, which unless you really want to, I don't think it's the best use of your limited ingots. The new LD, though, we gotta talk about that, is Seifer. Seifer is not getting a rework, and he didn't need one with this LD that he got. This move is super cool for some reason. He really channels his Dio Brando energy, but it's a double split AoE Brave plus HP attack, and it's got a bunch of hits in it. It's a new buff that gives him overflow up, which is very good for Seifer because when he does a lot of split AoE HP attacks, so overflow up means he has a higher cap, which means he can also take advantage of the HP damage up that he gets when he attacks debuff targets that is coming from this LD buff. That was a really convoluted way of explaining it. He gets HP damage up when he attacks debuff targets as well on his LD buff. Applies a new debuff to him. When this debuff is active and his buff is active and Seifer hits him, then he will delay them by 1 turn. The debuff reduces the enemy brave by 40%. It has a 10% M-Brave sap on it, which is nice, and it also reduces their brave gains by 30. So Kadaz reduces them by 50. Seifer reduces them by 30, so all situationally useful. It's something weird to have on a delay character because you don't want them to get many turns when Seifer's in the party because you're going to be pushing them back so much, but when they do get a turn, their brave gains will be reduced, so that's nifty. With this board, Seifer's going to start with this buff, and he's going to have debuff start on them as well, so he'll be delaying right off the bat, and then he'll just refresh it with his LD, and he can keep pushing them back for a very, very long time. Seifer is now the best AoE delayer in the game, full stop. Base call is skill 2. He inflicts a generic 40% M-Brave down, which is pretty big, also nice to have. The LD call delays 1 turn, and then it delays another turn because of the debuff being active and Seifer having buff start. I think I forgot to mention that for his base LD, but that also delays 1 turn by default, so that's also a functional 2-turn delay. And it's going to inflict his debuff, but it also does that regardless because he has debuff start. These are two very good calls, actually, just for the delays in general. You can push enemies pretty far back with Seifer, and having that 40% defense down framed is also very, very nice on top of it all. His armor split leans in the HP direction, which makes a lot of sense for Seifer because he's going to be hitting hard due to his debuff modifier, and he's got self HP damage up, so having that higher cap will allow him to take more advantage of his AoEs and stuff, which is very good. Seifer's armor at base is the tactics armor, so the debuff armor, so he has 20% defense down. He's got 40%, I believe, from his additional ability, and then he's got 40% framed on his LD debuff, so he can have a functional 100% defense down in the right conditions. So it's a little similar to Garland in that regard, where he's delaying the enemy, and when they're not getting turns, they're also being heavily crippled in terms of their stats. What do I think? Well, I kind of gave it away with my talking and hyping up Kurasame. Kurasame's LD call and just base call, those two combined, best calls in the game, hands down. Still use them on every single fight in JP to this day, unless there's Imperial immunity, which to my knowledge has only happened like once or twice after this point, but otherwise, it's Kurasame LD call all day, every day, forever. I think it's ridiculous. So yeah, great value there. So you don't have Kurasame already, this is this is the banner to go for. Seifer is also pretty fantastic, I think. He's not gonna, he doesn't have height, but he really having those consistent AoE delays, because he delays on everything now. Every button he presses will delay all the enemies back at least 1 turn, and if he presses the LD again, he'll send them back 2 turns. His calls, even if you don't have him in the party going forward, are also good for that effect. Can't really go wrong with either of them at this point, especially because we got a ton of delay orbs upcoming in JP. And Seifer, again, even if he outlives his usefulness on his team and you don't feel like investing in his blue, which you don't probably need for him, but having those delays in your pocket, very, 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 very helpful. Something to note about both of these guys, their reruns. Kurasame has only rerun at this point on a paid LD banner. You pay $80, I believe it was US, to potentially get 1 of 3 LDs on the banner. I think the other LDs were like Galuf and Zidane, I think. So that's messy. So this is a definitely the time to pick up Kurasame, because unlike Jack, who reruns a couple times in the future, Kurasame, they knew how broken the debuff is, and they said y'all gonna pay to maybe get it. As for Seifer, he's about to get his crystal level 90 with a rework in JP, so his next rerun is a tuning pass for him where he's getting upgrades. So that's something to consider if you're on the fence about him and you can pass on him. But other than that, yeah, dude. I know there's a lot of Porom hype, and I do plan to deflate that slightly, but honestly, this banner I think is probably the best banner of the month, solely for Kurasame's HP damage up call, because I've gotten the most use out of that than anything in JP. Right, more than Seifer, more than Porom, more than Warrior Light, more than any of the goofballs this month. Kurasame's, I cannot emphasize enough how much I have abused this call, and how I would hope that everyone else can get that LD just so they can use it just like me. So yeah, am I pulling? Yes, I am pulling. I do already have Kurasame, but I want Seifer. 1, because he's Dio. 2, because he's cool, probably because he's Dio. 3, I just kind of like using him in general, and those delays I found very helpful. Something that stands out to me for Seifer especially was Transcendence 4. Nope, wrong. No, right, actually, it was Transcendence 4, where you needed either range or magic because you got blown up by physical, but the orb was ranged, and Seifer kept the bosses under control pretty much the entire battle because he had the AoE range delays on lock. Especially there's multiple range orbs in the future in JP. Seifer can pretty much exist through all of them. So yeah, big thumbs up to Seifer. I am pulling probably just tickets, but definitely something I'm interested in. As for the Lufenia, notably different from the event release. The orb is to delay the enemy, and you get a +4. We have so many delay characters: Garland, Aranea. It's just a long list, and these guys, more than likely nobody will let them get a turn. Just delay them and go loose. There's Brave gains somewhere in the fight. They do some other stuff, but nothing you can't handle if you just prevent them from getting turns, or naturally Ice Week. I think in JP I ran Onion Knight, LD Garland, BT Onion Knight, LD Garland, and Seifer, and I did fine. You won't see the mechanics if you just delay them the whole time. If you do let them get turns, I don't know what they do. So your best option really is just to delay infinitely. Godspeed to whoever lets them get turns, because I ain't trying to see it. In GL, who am I going to run? Probably going to run the good old Garland RNA again, and if I get Seifer, I'm going to throw him in as the 3rd, and we're just going to throw Kurasame's LD call up and Jack's call and just cap the entire battle, and it's just going to be glorious. Another breather of a fight, definitely. The Transcendence campaign with the triple burst goodness: Sephiroth, Paladin Cecil, Warrior of Light. Oh, Everwell, Paladin Cecil ain't getting nothing. He's not getting LD boards. This is why I say, I've heard a couple of people say he was getting LD boards. No, he's not getting LD boards. This is why in the Global First videos I said LD boards is a meaningless metric to criticize something over, because no one even knows what LD boards do nowadays, because they already come baked in. Paladin Cecil is just getting high armor plus here, and he's already got the unity at base. He's got the 2-2 split for Brave and HP, about even for each stat. So I mean, if you're still using Paladin Cecil and you wanna, he's not hitting those caps himself, definitely, but the party probably can with enough burst stacking. So do it at your own peril. I wouldn't personally, but nothing else to really talk about for him there. But we do have 2 more interesting units, and I'll go in order of biggest upgrades. So that means Warrior of Light's next. Warrior of Light's getting 80 and LD boards, and these are pretty significant. First things first, the boys finally getting Last Stand. Warrior Light has Last Stand, y'all. It's been so long, but he finally got it. Yeah, finally he got it. As for the LD attack, it's now 100% AoE instead of 50% splash. It has a bigger Brave gain, and the LD overhead lasts longer now as well for 15 turns. So it barely ran out before, but now it runs out even less. More? Never mind. You know what I mean. He also gets a mini replication of his burst effect within his LD overhead, which is pretty dope. The party gets Brave regen based on their shield numbers, which is sick. The party gets Brave damage resist, so your shields are lasting longer as well. Gained overflow, so now Warrior Light's batteries can overflow way more easily. When a shield is active, additionally, each party member gets 20% HP damage up, and on top of that, Warrior of Light gets a personal 30% HP damage up for a total 50% HP damage up on Warrior of Light. So he is capping his attacks effortlessly. 50% HP damage up for himself. Oh, that is one crazy band-aid. Percent for the party on top of it just for having a shield active, and that's such an easy condition to fill. Oh my god, it's great. Also a slight general stat buff, and that is Eye Brave, M Brave, attack, and defense up slightly on top of the other stats he had before, which is all pretty good. His base call, just AoE, drop shields for everyone, no effect, but the shields alone are already good enough. And the LD call does exactly what his LD does. You do the 100% AoE, taunt on whoever called it, and the party gets shields, and while the effect is up, and this is specifically the orange call thing under the collar, while this is up, you get the HP damage reduction based on the shield value, and you also get the brave regen based on the shield value. This is a hilariously powerful call that has saved many lives in the future, so this is definitely valuable. Warrior Lights, he was already solid, but now he is fantastic. HP damage up, decent buffs for the party, and the battery and the regen like crazy. He's just an all-rounder, and he's pretty much impossible to like creep because he has a very unique ability to prosper. If you ain't used Warrior Light since the encouragement armor, the Brave Again armor got buffed, it definitely helped him pump out better battery again. And with his high armor plus, he's got the HP split for the party. So party's getting big Brave caps. It's very good for him because not only are you getting battery to crazy with Warrior Light and you got the gained overflows and stuff, but he also has the HP damage up from the shield buff being active. So this is a very good armor, and I plan to blue him just because I took advantage of it so much in JP, and it ended up being very, very beneficial. Last but definitely not least, Sephiroth is finally getting his rework that he is well deserved in an LD board and AD and armor plus and all the work. So let me go over that right quick. Still pretty simple. It is Sephiroth at the end of the day. Skill 1 is now an AoE split, Brave plus HP attack, and then he refunds and finishes off with single target Brave plus HP. So still 2 attacks, but it's way more AoE valuable now. And this is what you're going to want to be pressing when Sephiroth's burst effect is up. Additionally, his skill 2 got more usage, and it does a Brave gain into multiple HP attacks with refund in the middle. It's all single target, and it has splash afterwards of 20%. So Sephiroth's pumping a lot of numbers out again, and his skills are as frightening as they should have been now. His LD board, and I misspoke earlier, I said he's getting 80, but he already had 80, but I'm not going to go back and edit that either. Y'all know how I do. But he gets debuff start of his LD debuff, and now it has a gold frame, so now he is matching up with Kadaj in that regards. I don't know why they decided to have these two of all people have gold debuffs, but these are the last two known people at this point in the game to get gold debuffs, but it's good because it can't be cleansed now. And now his LD attack does a bunch more brave hits and HP attacks. I think it's 3 in total, but I'm not about to count that. It's just big damage. Y'all know what it is. And he gets a new framed buff for himself that has stacks on it. You got the usual good stats on it: attack, eye brave, M brave, recovered, brave overflow up, and he's also got the Golbez thing where he has brave stolen up. I don't know what they're calling it anymore, but if he does 100 and he's got a percent on it, he does that percent more. So 100, 20% brave whatever up, he's doing 120. Or he's getting 120. Ah, it's so confusing. You know what it means. These buffs goes up to 30 across the board, and he's also just got a flat HP damage up 10%. So yeah, good stuff all around. Because of this stolen brave thing up, it's going to be deceptive, similar to Golbez, where he's doing more, he's getting more brave than it appears. So he's doing a lot of damage now, a lot of damage. His call was indirectly buffed by him getting debuff start. Now he can it's very useful for cleansing bosses because now he can drop his gold framed 30% brave damage up, and even if they cleanse, the debuff will stick. So that's very handy. That applies to his Octaslash base call and his LD call, which also does not have an effect. It's just damage, but you can apply the debuff again. Oh, and Sephiroth's stacks, by the way, increase after his turn, so he doesn't really have to do anything to maintain it. And even if the buff falls off, it will remember what stack you were at, so this is pretty much just permanent uptime. Just make sure you're paying attention to the stack, and if it falls off, just press LD again. He's got an even high armor plus split on his caps, brave and HP respectively. So blew him. I plan to blue him as well. You buff him up to where he hits those caps and you're pumping out a lot of damage. He's definitely competitive, and with that burst effect especially, he can take advantage of the skill 1 and break both enemies continually. What do I think overall? Well, Paladin Cecil didn't really get anything, but he also didn't really need anything at this point. He already had his LD boards, and high armor plus is just it's a nice to have, I suppose, on him just to cross him off the list. But He's even like 4 months old at this point. Warrior Light is a god. I've used him in so many Lufenias and Lufenia pluses like Shiva and Ifrit, for example, I believe. And yeah, Warrior Light's value is just very good, and his calls are also clutch. Oh no, I'm about to get blown up buttons. So great value there. Sephiroth comes back, and now he has competitive damage again, compounded by the fact that he has a burst. He's doing a lot of good things, and they really fixed him up good. Nothing more else to say on this banner. So am I pulling? Yes, I do not have Warrior of Light's burst, and I am very I don't remember the stock terms, but I think it's is it bearish? I don't know, but whatever I'm trying to say is that in hindsight, in JP, I should have gone harder on these triple burst banners, solely because there's the potential to get burst dupes, which could be valuable for getting other bursts, and also we don't know when these guys are going to run. Sephiroth hasn't rerun, Warrior Light has not rerun, and Paladin Cecil has not rerun burst-wise in JP at this point of recording. So I don't want to gamble and then have them on a banner that I don't care about down the line, so I'm just going to grab Warrior Light now, and I think that'll be useful down the road. Fingers crossed for dupes along the way, or I'll get them early, but absolutely gems on that banner for sure. Just to round everything out for me. And if you have a ridiculous amount of gems like I do, I would recommend you personally do the same. Warrior of Light also trivializes Transcendence 3, the right node and the middle, so he's a good pickup regardless. And Sephiroth is almost guaranteed to age well down the line, so yeah, this is money for me. Not spending money, but money is in value. Hoping investing in these Sephiroth stonks will pay off down the line. Transcendence 3, the last event of the month. We have Porom LD, very, very hyped as the Lufenia Plus savior, and I am here to rain on the parade and put things into perspective, so buckle up, guys. Porom did not get a rework, but she didn't need one as her LD is utterly broken, as I'm sure you've heard of by now if you're watching this video. The actual attack is a burst heal, and then it batteries the party, and it does a double Brave plus HP split AoE attack. Porom gets a new buff off of this, right? The big thing that Porom's known for, at least one of them, is the follow-up that happens after all of her attacks. Or not even attacks, just any button she presses. So C65, skill 1, skill 2, anything she hits, she will follow up afterwards and not consume Brave. Brave Shave based on HP, I don't know whether it's the party or Porom self due to translations, but it's someone's HP. It does do an AoE Brave Shave, but it doesn't break based on the current HP of the party. And the HP damage is split, and it also batteries the party based on the HP damage dealt. So Porom's big thing is that she provides a lot of safety in terms of Brave in the after turn, but there's more. Just you wait. Additionally, this buff gives massive overflows up, and it's not usually it's like 20-20. Porom has stolen Brave overflow up 50% on this buff, and gained overflow up 30%. That's abnormal. She also gets HP regen for the party on top of this. Party's max HP goes up as well. So now the party's HP can scale even better now, and she can overheal with this stuff. So if you throw Freya's Sphere on Porom, it gets crazy. There's some shenanigans explaining for Porom's HP artifacts over other stuff. I don't know the exact ramifications for it, so don't ask. That being said, I did farm 10/20s on Porom. And it also gives the party entirely last stand. So sorry Freya guy, this is almost like direct creep to exactly what Freya does. And on top of all this, when the party is above 100% of HP, at or above 100% HP, Porom increases the party's Brave gains by 20%. This is the big one and why she has a big claim to fame. She is the first, I believe, of the Brave gain up for party units. So all your batteries are getting bumped up. This is a direct counter to Lufenia Brave gain reduction, and it gets even steeper in Lufenia Plus, which is why Porom was so sought out there, just to counter the steep reductions that we already had. You feel me? Porom has the encouragement, the battery high armor, good because she batteries on everything. Very good for her. And her splits lean HP, which makes sense because the party is getting batteried all the time. So you have an easier, especially with those giant overflows, you have an easier time hitting those caps. Blue Porom is definitely a solid investment. As for her calls, the base call is Cry, her skill 1. The effect is just a aura party attack buff, and you can apply the 80, I believe it's 80% defense down from Cry, which is actually kind of solid. LD call is pocket overflows along with a nerfed Brave gain up for the party. Pretty good. But you're probably not using this over like Jack and Kurasame, so I mean, whatever. Yeah, this is all good stuff, very defensive, but notice she doesn't actually get much in terms of party brave or HP damage up, and I'll go into that in a second. Actually, it's been a second. It's time for violence. Porom will not save you in Lufenia Plus. Lufenia Plus is not a boogeyman. I've said this so many times, but Porom is not a win button. You still have to, if you're not doing teams that take advantage of the brave gain, or I mean, Porom provides that safety net for the battery and the healing and the keeping you your HP in check with the HP damage reduction. But again, Porom will not just win you battles by virtue of being there. You still have to build around her. She's not the one-size-fits-all solution to every single battle. While she can fit in pretty much every team comp, you still need to build an appropriate team that will do things. She's not a carry button, and I think that needs to be emphasized so people get their expectations in check. Personally, I actually skipped Porom on her release because I could do Transcendence 3 fine without her, so I didn't see the need. And I didn't understand how powerful she was, and while I did end up getting her on like a free LD pull later down the line, well, I still hadn't used her. To this date, I haven't used her in Lufenia Plus because I haven't really ever. Sorry, I hit my mic there. I haven't felt like I needed to, really. I think it's important that I stress this perspective that if you're not interested in Porom, you can be fine in the upcoming difficulties and whatever content comes to pass, and you're not gonna. And while there was periods for me when I felt like, oh man, Porom looks like dope. You know, I eventually got over it and was like, eh, whatever. I mean, I live without her. So if you have any questions about not having Porom, I'm your guy to ask. She definitely has a powerful area, and she's still being used to this day for stuff. But that applies to a lot of people, so I don't think it's a great metric to judge a unit by. Don't worry, I got y'all in 4K. I remember when Porom came out, she was annoying. She was okay, but a skip. Her voice was annoying, but now everyone seems to forget that her voice is annoying just because she's a hyped up meta unit for the game. I hate it here. What you're getting into with Palom. Again, I can't say it enough. Very powerful, but also very skippable at the same time. That's not a hot take because you can see on all my runs in JP, I ain't used Porom except for one boss rush, which was base Lufenia, where I just felt like using her and never touched her again. Please don't feel like you're missing out if you're not interested in using her as a unit. Please, that's all I'm saying. All that being said, am I pulling? Yes. I have committed in my New Game Plus and Global to doing Brave Gained Up means similar to Alpha No because it looks like a fun way to do it. So I already have Ishtola's Burst, I have Porom, so I wanna try out the Brave Gain side of things and mix up things that I did in JP. So a little less Warrior Light and a little more Porom are gonna be on my teams. Just try and mix it up. Should be fun. She's good for a while. I don't want to spam her because that might get boring, but I want to try it out, basically what I'm trying to say. Porom is not known to rerun at any point except currently in JP. Actually, there is a banner up where it is Bart's BT and Porom LD. It's like a weird they've been starting these like weird BT banners after like during the start of a 2-week synergy cycle where just a random old BT is featured with a random other LD. So but that's like right now in JP, so that's like 8 months out, and if you're gonna wait 8 months to use Porom and get Bart's Burst there, I mean that's a very strange decision. But so yeah, this is definitely the time to pull her if you plan on investing. As for the fights, this is the easiest Transcendence to date of all time, pretty objectively. The left one is the Gao Dinos, and the orb is to launch. These guys aren't dangerous at all. I think you gotta bring an orange crystal. Like Layle is the MVP, just LD only, and he makes them launchable all the time. You don't really gotta do nothing, and before you know it, the battle will be over. So that's cake. This can probably easily be done without a burst. The right node is the Aerith Behemoth. At least I think they're from the Aerith Lost Chapter, whatever. The orb is to reduce the HP damage that you take. So you gotta let them get turns and eat an HP attack, but take less of it. This is the Cell Porom, but we have so many units that do that now, like Guy, Gladio, Warrior of Light, Galuf. Mine's blanking here, but there's a ton of units that can fulfill this condition. I think Reno's LD Pyramid might fulfill it. Don't quote me on that though. Let them get turns. They're pretty HP attack happy. Just provided you get the proper turn manipulation, then you don't end up getting screwed by this orb. It can be a little tricky to finesse, but not terribly difficult, I don't think, once you get the rhythm going. They buffed themselves at some point. I don't remember exactly what the buffs were, but I don't remember them being particularly threatening. But I also had Edward on the team and kind of shut them out, so maybe I missed something big. I don't know. Okay, never mind that. I just looked at the boss page and they give themselves HP regen, so you might want to push that off, maybe. Shout out to 8 debuff. Now we have a harder time pushing enemy generics off, but that's a thing to be worried about. Otherwise, this fight wasn't bad either. Porom, Warrior Light. We have so many options to reduce HP damage, so you just play the fight normally and you'll be fine. The middle gate's interesting. The first wave is the Charlotta dragon things, and they have attacks that ignore brave damage reduction. So Warrior Light has an interesting interaction here, where if he he has the shields up, so they ignore the shields and they'll break you, but they won't hit the shields. So your HP damage reduction will be immaculate, and you'll just not die like at all because they can't reduce your shields. So it ends up working in that favor. It just totally trivializes it. But the actual orb is on the second wave. But I know for a fact that in the Charlotta wave, I think around 50% you gotta launch so you can actually do brave damage, because they get like, launch me. But other than that, that wave's, I ran it with Warrior Light, so I don't remember anything about it. It was that trivialized, and Warrior Light trivializes the second wave too. It's a reskin of the dreaded Medusas, but they're not nearly as bad this time. Orb in the second wave is just to HP regen, and you can actually accomplish this with the sphere. So what I did was I ran Layle, Warrior Light BT, and Bart's BT here, and I put a generic Porom's HP regen sphere on my Bart's, and that satisfied the orb, and I just murdered them. And it was that easy. This fight is seriously cake compared to the last two like nonsense Transcendence we've had. JP side, I ran Layle, Galuf, and Bart's for my burst on the left, and on the right I had Warrior Light BT, Sephiroth LD, and Edward. For some reason, I don't know why I was insistent on using Edward with Warrior Light, but that was a dumb move that caused me to reset a bunch. And then in the middle, I just used Bart's with the C Sphere for Porom's HP regen, and then I used Layle and Warrior Light, and I just breezed through it. It felt like a chaos, honestly. It was that simple. Definitely. The conclusion to ending a bit of a breather month after the nonsense that was like Edward and Dash's and Nine's lost chapter. Ugh, glad it's over. And that's the month. This might be my longest pull plans video yet, just because I had so much to say about some of these units, because I felt like it was just some nuance that needed to be filled in. So if you guys could go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and all that good stuff. What am I most excited for this month? Definitely to try out Porom for real, and not just have her on my roster and have her kind of when I felt was out of her prime. I'm excited to skip Iroha. I'm excited to flex some new teams and do a bunch of Noel runs that I didn't record JP side. So recapping, my pull plans are Gem Noel LD, skip Strago and Ashe, skip Iroha, ticket Layle, ticket Seifer, and we'll evaluate my tickets by the time of Porom. I might go gems depending on how much I've spent at that point, but that remains to be determined. But I do want Porom's LD at this point, and I'm going to blue Noel, I'm going to blue Sephiroth. I think I might hold off on bluing Warrior Light, and I think I blew Porom first, and then we'll see where I go from there. Yeah, that's it. So again, like the video, subscribe, tell me what your plans are for the month, and I'll be cutting this up for the clips for those people who don't want to watch the whole thing, but this is here as a reference if you want to get a sneak peek at what I am thinking. So catch you guys later. Good luck in your pulls. Have a great rest of your life. What? I'll catch you later. All right, peace.